Hello everybody and welcome to Bridgwater. Now today I'm going to be travelling by train from Bridgwater up to York with one changeover at Bristol Temple Meads, and I thought I'd take you along with me on the journey. Now I didn't film too much on the Great Western service from Bridgwater to Bristol Temple Meads, partly because I've done it about 1,000 times and partly because I was quite stressed as the train was running about 9 or 10 minutes late and I only had a 13-minute connection at Bristol Temple Meads. But in the end I did make the connection, and I was more focused on filming the cross-country service, which would take me onwards from Bristol up to York via Birmingham, New Street and Leeds. Also, the cross-country set that I ended up getting was one of the refurbished Class 220s, or it was two Class 220s that had both been refurbished and recently entered service, and they had gone down to Plymouth the night before. Now, I'm not going to really spoil anything, but I will say the cross-country refurbishment on the Voyagers, or at least on the ones that I went on, were actually quite nice. And although I didn't really have too much of a problem with the previous refurbishments, apart from the fact that it was really old, I actually thought that it smartened up the Voyagers quite a bit. Anyway, here I am on my way to Bristol Temple Meads, stopping off at Weston-super-Mare.
This coach will remain locked at the next station. To alight, please move forward to coach C.
Here I am changing over at Bristol Temple Meads. There was a little bit of a brisk walk involved, but luckily the cross-country train ended up getting held up behind my local Great Western service from Bridgwater and Taunton, which was quite a relief, and I managed to get the refurbished cross-country 220s arriving into Bristol Temple Meads on camera, which was quite a nice change, as usually I am running between trains here at Temple Meads, as quite often when I have changeovers here at Temple Meads, the trains from Bridgwater seem to randomly run behind schedule. Anyway, here is the set of 220s arriving into Bristol Temple Meads to take me on the 4-hour journey up to York. As I depart Bristol Temple Meads on my 4-hour odyssey, you can see the adjacent Platform 1 and Platform 3. Platform 3 is mainly used for services heading northbound. The local services from Weston-super-Mare to Avonmouth and Severn Beach occasionally use this platform, and many of the services from the West Country, such as Exeter and Taunton, also use this platform when heading towards Newport and Cardiff Central. Platform 1 is used for the Avonmouth and Severn Beach services, which start at Bristol Temple Meads. Anyway, this cross-country service would not have many stops for the first couple of hours between Bristol and Birmingham, with there only being 3 stops: Bristol Parkway, Cheltenham Spa and Worcestershire Parkway, which not all trains call at. Here I am making the short 10-minute hop across to Bristol Parkway. Here I am arriving into Bristol Parkway. where you can change for local services towards Gloucester, which some continue on to Cheltenham and Worcester, and you can also change for services towards London Paddington, calling at Swindon, sometimes Didcot and Reading, and services towards Newport, Cardiff and Swansea, which sometimes continue on to Carmarthen, and in the summer, Pembroke Dock. Here I am arriving into Cheltenham Spa. Here you can change for local cross-country and transport for Wales services, as well as Great Western services as far as Gloucester, but after that only transport for Wales and cross-country, although only some services, continue onwards to Chepstow, Lydney, Newport and Cardiff Central, with some of the transport for Wales services continuing on to Bridgend and Maesteg. Here you can also change for Great Western services down the line via Stroud towards Swindon and London Paddington. For some reason I think this line is called the Golden Valley line, but I could be completely making that up, so don't quote me on that. However, the line does travel through some lovely stations including Kemble and Stroud, not so much Stonehouse. Anyway, here I am leaving Cheltenham Spa on my way to my next stop on the journey, Worcestershire Parkway. Although I didn't film us arriving and departing from Worcestershire Parkway, here I am arriving into Birmingham via the Cross City line. Some cross-country services, mainly the ones heading towards Leeds, York, Newcastle and Scotland, use the Cross City line to get into Birmingham New Street, whereas the services heading towards Wolverhampton, Stafford, Stoke-on-Trent, Macclesfield, Stockport and Manchester Piccadilly use the line via Pineapple Road, Kings Heath and Moseley Village, all of which stations have recently opened up, although the line has always been there. Those three stations only recently opened after being closed during World War II. Anyway, one station which wasn't closed during World War II, at least as far as I'm concerned or aware, is Birmingham New Street, which is an absolute monstrosity of a station. I do quite like it, but especially down at platform level, it can be very dark and very dingy at times. Here you can change for many services all across the country, including trains operated by Avanti West Coast, West Midlands Railway, who mainly operate the local services around Birmingham, London North Western Railway and Transport for Wales, just to name a few, which head across towards Telford Central, Shrewsbury and onwards towards the Welsh coast. Here I am leaving Birmingham New Street alongside one of the Avanti West Coast Class 390 Pendolino trains. I'm not too sure where this was heading, but one thing I do know is they were built by French manufacturer Alstom, and lots of these operate across the country and across the globe. In the UK, only Avanti West Coast operate these trains, but across the rest of Europe, I believe they operate in Portugal and in Italy, and they may also operate in other countries as well. After Birmingham New Street, my cross-country Voyager train sets would call at Burton-on-Trent, Derby, Chesterfield, Sheffield, Wakefield Westgate, Leeds and York, before continuing on to Newcastle and Edinburgh, stopping at some, but not all, of the stations, especially beyond Newcastle. As I leave Birmingham, heading towards Burton-on-Trent and Derby, we can see the works that are happening for HS2. I believe, but I could be wrong, my knowledge isn't always correct, the site where the new HS2 station will be for Birmingham Curzon Street. It's quite funny actually, because quite recently, at least at the time of recording this video, the West Midlands Metro opened a new extension, or a new tram extension, to the Millennium Point stop. And on the other side of the HS2 works, there are more new tram tracks which are ready for opening, or near enough ready for opening. But the tram section of the route, or the new tram line, cannot fully be opened yet because it has to travel straight through Birmingham Curzon Street Station, which at the moment could be 6 years away from opening, which is completely nuts. I think, however, HS2 have given permission for the tracks in Birmingham Curzon Street to be built and for tram services just to run straight through the construction site whilst construction takes place to finish Birmingham Curzon Street. Here I am arriving into Derby. Here you can change from many local services, mainly operated by East Midlands Railway. I'm not too familiar with the railways in these areas, so the only services I'm aware you can catch from here are the local cross-country and East Midlands services across to Nottingham, and I believe some of the cross-country services also continue on to Stansted Airport. Apart from that, I'm not too sure what trains you can catch from Derby. Here I am arriving into Sheffield. Once again, I'm not too sure what train services you can catch from here, as I'm not too familiar with the railways in the East Midlands area. But you can change for services operated by East Midlands Railway, obviously cross-country, because I'm travelling on them right now through Sheffield Station, as well as local northern services. Other than that, I don't think there are any other train operators here at Sheffield Station. Here I am departing Sheffield pretty much on time. I don't think we were running very late at all, unlike on the return journey where we got stuck behind a local train and ended up running about 10 to 15 minutes behind schedule. The next calling point for my service heading towards York and beyond will be Wakefield Westgate, followed by Leeds and York, where I will then disembark the train, and the train will continue on to Darlington, Durham, Newcastle, and then stations onwards to Edinburgh, where the train will then terminate. However, some services do continue onwards, mainly towards Glasgow Central, but I believe some services also continue on to Dundee, Aberdeen, and possibly Inverness. I'm not too familiar with the cross-country network north of Newcastle. Here I am arriving into Leeds. Now, I wasn't quite prepared for how big of a station Leeds would be. I have seen videos and pictures of Leeds station, and it does look quite big. But I'd possibly call it the Reading of the North. It's not that far up north, but I'm going to call it north anyway, because it's more north than Bridgwater, I'll tell you that much. That's actually quite south, believe it or not. And well, Leeds station was absolutely gigantic. It's probably bigger than Reading station. And well, there's just trains going here, there and everywhere. There's train services operated by all sorts of companies. I'm not too sure about Grand Central, but I know LNER operate here, Northern operate here, Transpennine Express operate here, and there are a few other operators as well, which have just popped out of my mind. I can't even remember what I was going to say. As well as that, you can catch local bus services from outside of the station, as well from Leeds City bus station. As well as this, I believe a few years ago, 2 new Platform Zeros were added, here at Leeds, and possibly one at one of the Bradford stations. But I could be wrong about that, it could have been somewhere else, or not at all. Here I am departing Leeds, heading towards York, which would be the next station in about 20 to 30 minutes. I can't quite remember. Here I am leaving alongside an LNER Zoomer. I think these trains look amazing, as well as a northern train. I can't remember what class of train it is, and I don't even know if it's in a diesel or electric version, so it could be 2 different types of train. As we leave, you can see the amazing Leeds city centre, and in a minute you'll get a great view of Leeds City bus station.
We've only got 20 minutes.
Completely unreserved. If you do see something that doesn't look right, you can report this to a member of the onboard crew. Alternatively, you can text British Transport Police on 61016. The next station call for the service in just over 20 minutes time will be York.
Rubbish, do you have any rubbish? Rubbish, do you have any rubbish? Quick, give me the rubbish, quick, give me the rubbish.
Here I am arriving into York. I'd like to say a massive thank you to everybody who has continued to support the channel and has watched this particular video. It was quite fun to make whilst being on an overcrowded cross-country train. Mind you, it wasn't as busy as the return service. which, as it just so happens, was one of the older 220s anyway, so it wasn't as good. But anyway, I thoroughly enjoyed my journey up here and my stay over in York and the surrounding Yorkshire countryside as well. If you're interested in my adventures up here in Yorkshire, I have got 2 or 3 other videos that will be coming out quite soon, possibly a couple of weeks after this video, I'm not too sure yet. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. And oh, by the way, comment down below if you think I should have stayed on this train and gone to Newcastle or Edinburgh. I did consider it. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye everyone!